Hi, so in today's video, we'll look at creating a Koa app with a login logout functionality supported by username and password. We will be using Postgres to store username and password, and we will be using Koa.js for our server with Koa Passport middleware and Passport.js. So let's get started. So first, I've got this empty project. Let's initialize it. So yarn init hyphen y. Oh, okay. And we'll use 18. I think I just switched to fish and I don't have things installed. I'll just revert back to bash and use bash. Sorry, zsh. Cool. Now that we can see, let's create the project again. Yarn init hyphen y. So it will just say yes to all the features. And now we have got packages in. So now let's install our dependencies. So let's add yarn add koa. uh, I'll just copy the dependencies and show you all what they do. So these are the dependencies we need. So bcrypt is a package that we'll use to create hash from the password, Koa for our servers, body parser to actually parse the JSON in the body from request of the which comes in. Koa passport, this will add authentication middleware to Koa. Koa router to add our routes, and Koa session to actually create the session, pass the session cookies. Uh, Passport local, this is the local strategy where you use password and username and password to authenticate the user, and PG is just Postgres library for JavaScript. Then we have got types for all the uh, libraries that we are using, and we have got nodemon. So this will automatically restart the server when any file changes, so we don't need to stop and restart again. TS node is used to support nodemon, and then we have got TypeScript. We'll be using TypeScript in this project. Since we have installed these, let's install them by running yarn. While it's installing these, let's also go ahead and create our files. So let's create a new folder called source, and in this let's create our index.ts file. So this is where we'll write all the code. So now let's just create a very simple server first. So import Goa from Goa. Dependencies are still resolving. My internet seems slow. It should not take this long, but yeah, let's give it a minute. Awesome, so it's installed now. Now what I like doing is export an async function so that we can use the await statements here in the main itself. So main and dot catch. If any error happens, then we'll just log the error. Once that is done, in the main, let's actually create the app. New app equals new Koa. And let's also just start the app.listen 3000 port and started. So let's just do app.use get context. So let's just add context.body equals app started. So now that we have got the very simple example of Koa setup, let's add this script to actually start the app. So this is the script. I'll just remove this part, but you can see nodemon to start this. And one last thing, let's also create tsconfig.json. This is required for a TypeScript project, so I'm just going to copy this from one of my project. Not going to explain this, but I'll push code so you can actually take a look at my TypeScript file if you wanted to, but it's a very simple get started TypeScript file. Now that we have this set up, we have got script to actually start the file. So let's run yarn start. So it's started. Let's curl. So we can see app started got returned when we curl the port number 3001. Now that we have got the app started, let's start adding stuff in here. So the first thing I would do is I would actually set up the uh, session plugin and the passport middleware to actually session middleware and passport middleware to get started. So for session middleware, let's import Koa session and import passport from Koa passport. Now that we have it, let's and the first thing we need to do is define a key, app.keys. This will be used to actually encrypt the session ID. So I do one thing very simple where we can just go here and type UUID. So go to online UI generation tool. So let's just copy this UID and this will become our key. In reality, like, don't store it in server, rather make it a environment variable, so safer. And app.use, and then we would just initialize session, and session takes two arguments. One is the config, so let's just keep it empty for now. We'll look at it later, like what config does, but yeah, let's keep it empty for now. And also app.use body parser. uh, VS Code is really good. Like a lot of times it would just typing and it would auto import, which is great, like saves a few keystrokes, which is great. And one thing, like sometimes it gives blue lines, so it's because the spelling check. So body parts is not a identified spelling in English. We'll just add it to our workspace to avoid any blue line errors. So info, blue line info. So once we have these set up, now let's set up few routes, or yeah, let's set up few routes. So let's go to here and create our file routes.ts, and again I would export. This doesn't need to be a sync body function routes, and this should take router, and then we can do router.get and things like that. So let's set up the router here. So I would come here and just do app router equals new router, so it will import from Koa router package. Once that is imported, let's pass router into routes to actually set up the routes. I would do that down below, closer to where the app starts, so we know where things are. So let's import routes and just pass the router here. Now once the router is passed, so the way it works is we get the router here and we have got the types and everything. So now I can do router dot get on this thing. If it's home page, then we can just do dot body equals, this is home page. Now that we have it set up, we have routes set up. So let's actually add the routes to the app.use router dot, I think it's routes, router.routes. So it will add all the routes and also all the allowed methods, router dot allowed methods. Now that we have this set up, so the app start failed because it seems routes didn't get imported. Um, Not sure why it didn't auto import. It should have, but oh, okay. I think I know because I didn't export it from here. So VS Code didn't identify. I think now it will identify. See, quick fix import from routes. So that's great. That's great. VS Code, really good, really good editor. Now that we have it set up, I would also set up Insomnia to actually call it. So So anyone who has not used Insomnia, this is Insomnia. You can download it from its website. So if you see something like this, let's go ahead and create a new project. Let's do using session with Goa local vault. I don't want to create it in what do you call it? Test APIs. And in here, let's create the first request and let's call it homepage. And I'll quickly look back. So we created a route called slash get. So it should be HTTP local host 3001 if I request. Okay, it's returns app started, which comes from one of the middlewares. Here, let's remove this, and now this is homepage. So we get the homepage. Now that we have it set up, let's go ahead and set up authentication. So for authentication, I would create another file called auth middlewares .ts. In reality, you can create a package a folder for middleware and add all your middlewares, but just being towards a simple example, we'll just do that. And in middleware, so let's export the function of middleware. And the first thing we need to define here is for passport to actually serialize and deserialize users, so it can get from the database on how to do it. And actually this would be a good point for us to make a small segue, that before actually adding this middleware auth middleware, let's add the login path so that user can pass username and password and we store it in our database. So let's do that first. So for my database, I'm using Postgres. I've installed Postgres for Mac. I'll open it. So this is my Postgres server and I've got four database. I'll be using YouTube session database. So let's come here. It's this. Now, I think I created the tables and everything. So I'll just drop the tables. Let's look at the database. So database is empty now. It has no relation /t. So now let's create the first table. Create table. So for us, the table would be users. So let's create ID. ID would be serial and primary key. Then username. Let's make it varchar with a limit of 256 and password varchar. think it looks okay. So table is created. Let's look at the table once. Define users. So it has got ID, um, and so ID is serial, self-incrementing, auto-incrementing. So it will just give IDs, username, and password. Now let's create the path of login. Router.post login. Making it async so that we'll be doing some actions here. So let's get username and password. Username and password from ctx dot request dot body. Now we have got username and password from context. Let's create a hash out of the password. So for that we'll be using the bcrypt package. It's there in the package JSON. So just to show you all, so this is the using this package. So this is used to hash passwords, and the way it works is it takes salt rounds, it should do, and the password, and it will create a hash out of it. So we can actually do it as a one-liner, which goes my plain text password and hash rounds, salt rounds, and it will give us a hash. So let's go ahead and do it. So coming back here, I would do constant hash password equals bcrypt. It didn't auto import. Dot hash, and I think I didn't import types, so let's also add types for it. Now that the types are added, we can probably see, yeah, so we've got hash method here, and since it's async, let's await hash and give our password and salt rounds. So let's just give 10 for now, and let's console log the hash password. So this looks good. Let's go ahead and call this path here. So just going to do another request called login, and it's going to be post http localhost login, and let's send the JSON ID. So this looks good. Let's go ahead and send it. 404. Oh yeah. So it got, the hash got created that we can see in the log here, in the logs here. So we have got hash of our password, which we are going to store it in database. So once we have got this hash, I think this is a good point for us to also set up database so that we can actually interact with it. So I'm just going to create another file called db.ts, and setting database with Postgres is like we just create a pool, and from that pool we'll take client each time we want to do transaction of reading and writing, and then we'll just do that. So it's gonna be like import from pg. I'm gonna use pool, and we can do export constant equals new pool, and for me host is localhost. Database is YouTube session. So those look good. We have got pool exported, so we will actually come back to our routes, and we would do constant client equals pool. Let's import it. Dot connect. Pool dot query, and the query is insert into our table name was users, if I remember correctly. Let's check once. Users, yes, our table name is users. um, Users, and we'll insert username and password, the values being they should do. And actually this will be register path, not login, so let's make it register path, and body equals registered successfully. So it's restarted. Let's come back to our insomnia and call the register path and send. So registered successfully. Let's go back to our database. So let's do select star from users, so we can see that the username and password is in there. Now comes the next step, where when user tries to log in and they send their plain text password, we can actually match it with what's there in their database. So coming back here, now let's set up our auth middlewares. So the first thing we need to do is we need to set up passport.js, and we need to actually give password to actually how to serialize and deserialize users. So the serialized user would help us set the value in the session. So we would actually set the user ID into session or username, and for deserialize or whatever the primary key is there in the users table, that would be our um, uh, that will be used to serialize users in session. And for deserialize, when the request comes in, we need to pull the user or the ID we have set up in the session, and fetch the user from the database and put it in the context, so that further request can see if it's authenticated and what's the user data related to the request. So let's first look at uh, serializing request. So we have got passport. Let's import passport. We'll be using Core passport for sure, like to set up the correct middlewares. So serialize users, and this will pass in the after login like the user details from the login strategy, which I'll show later, like it will come later. But now we have got the user and the done method. So once we get the user, let's just call done with null, and that's the error part, and user.id. So it's giving me errors right now. um, what I do some of the times is use ORM that helps us set up types for the database models easily. But in this case, I'm not gonna go down the route of like setting up ORM or anything. So for this one, we'll just do the user type, and user contains ID, which is string, uh, and then username, which is string, and password, which is string. So now that we have it set up, I'll just add user here. So the TypeScript error is gone, and now we'll also add the deserialized user. For deserialized user, again, it's gonna be, so we have set up the ID here, right? So in deserialized user, we'll get ID and the second argument being done, which we need to call once the method has executed. Now once we get here, let's so what we have to do is, using this ID, we need to pull the user. So we would pull the user from our database. To do that, the same as in setting up, we'll just do new pool, new client. So pool dot connect, gonna be await. Once that is done, await, and client dot query. So let's await it. Select star from users where ID equals $1, and let's just pass the ID here. Now with Postgres, let's verify, but as far as I remember, it returns rows, and in rows we need to check things. So we can actually do that. So let's copy this here, go to our home page, and this is just to verify like how the response looks. So copy this here, uh, make this async, and get the client. Once we have this, I'll just pass ID as 1. Let's console.log users, sorry, we have it logged. Let's go to our Insomnia and call homepage in here. So yeah, so in user we have got result, and then we have got rows, and rows is an object. So I think I need to do, to get the value, user dot rows and 0. This should give us the user. So let's go to back again to Insomnia, call this endpoint. Yeah, so we have got the user details. So this is how we're gonna fetch user.rows0. So let's come back to auth middleware. We have fetched the user, and to set it back to request so our other routes can use it, we need done, and again with null, there are no users, no errors, rows 0. So now we have got the serialized and deserialized user set up with passport. We need to add passport middleware to actually use a local strategy which is like username and password to authenticate. So that's how Passport.js works. It exports a lot of strategies like Facebook, Twitter, and local strategy for username and password. So we first need to import strategy. So it goes like this: import from passport local. This is the package we installed, and I think it exports. Yeah, it exports strategy. Uh, so let's come here and new strategy, and do return of username, password, and done. Now, once we have this, so we need to pull the user to verify username and password. So we're gonna do this same thing, same here as here. Let's copy this. So yeah, gotta be basic. So we have got the username and password, and okay, where username equals username. Now we would verify that constant. Let's make this users, and this users being users dot row, the first record. Now let's verify if user dot password is equals the password passed in. Yes. Then done, null, and pass in the user. Else we'll do done. Again, no errors. We'll just do false. In case there are errors, I'm not doing any error handling for this demo scenario, but we would actually uh, surround all of this with try catch and pass errors if any. Let's, for the sake of the demo, let's do it. Since we spoke about it, it goes here to else. We catch the error, then we can just do done error. So now we have got this setup, and now we come back to our routes, and now let's add a login route. Router dot post. One last thing before I do this, we need to actually initialize passport here. So the way it does is, first we need to import the authentication middlewares. So let's maybe before routes call auth middleware. So this will set up, and then app.use passport.initialize. So this will initialize passport and passport.session. So we'll take the session value and put it in the session so that we can actually use it, and the user ID gets set up. So we come back here, and then we actually do login. So login again looks very simple. Then cdx, or actually with login, let's redirect people. So let's create a app path, router dot get app, here in app, or router dot if they're not logged in, we'll just redirect into home page. So let's remove all this we added in home page for verify. Let's make it very simple. Now, when the user logs in, all we need to do is passport. So first I need to import passport again. Passport.authenticate, and we are using local strategy, and we would do if successful redirect to slash app, and sorry, slash app, and if it's a failure redirect, then we do slash. So I think we have got everything set up now. Let's go back to our insomnia, and insomnia in cookies. We don't have any cookies right now, as you can see. So let's go ahead, and this is registered. Let's rename this. Add another part for login. Post request. Same body as this one. So we have got this, and let's send. Cannot resolve. Host name, I think. Oh, local host. So let's send. So we got redirected to this is home page. So this app, that's interesting. I was expecting to get app, but let's see if any cookies got set up. No. So something went wrong. The password didn't match, maybe. But I think let's go to auth middleware and see what user got pulled. Oh, okay. So I think see the error is in here. I'm taking the hashed password and matching it with the actual password. So that's not how we do it. We match it using bcrypt. So bcrypt dot. Yeah, that's another thing. You don't actually compare it. Like compare and password and user dot password. I think it returns a promise. Yeah, it returns a promise. So let's await it. Let's check it out again. Yeah, so we got the app this time because the login was successful. And if we go to cookies, we can see the session cookie dot got set up. So this is the cookie which got set up, and it contains the user ID. So this path looks good. And once the cookies are set up, we go to route, and actually we have got the app here, right? If I do this, constant user equals context dot uh, session dot passport dot user, console dot log user. Let's call the app path. So I just add another request. I think it's a get, yeah, it's a get app. So if I send it, I'm getting app. And if I go back here, we can see the user got passed in as user1, which is the user ID that we have set up in passport.js and serialize here. So I think this covers the entire flow, how to create session and send cookies from the backend that will get set up in browser. One thing to include is when we are making a fetch call from the browser, if you're using native fetch, just do the header like credentials include, so it will also send back the cookies, and then you can actually establish a session and everything. Uh, one one last bit, to log out, we just need to do router dot um, get log out, and the way this works is we'll just do dot log out, and yeah, let's do this. So I'll go back to Insomnia, add another request, call it logout. So let's just copy it from here, logout. If I pass this 404, okay, we are not sending anything that says 444. But if I come back here, I pass the app, you can see now the user is undefined because we got logged out, and even the cookies should be cookies are there, but we got logged out. So on the server the session got disconnected or deleted. So that's how we manage the session on the server and the client. uh, Thank you so much for watching my video. Please do like, share, and subscribe. And also, if you have any feedback or any request for the topic that I should cover next, please do let me know in comments. Thank you.